Space Marine 2's newest mode, Siege, has been out for almost 1 month at this time, and while not flawless, it has been a phenomenal experience so far, and I think is a solid foundation for what could become an absolutely phenomenal game mode within Space Marine 2. Now, I've already made a video talking about some of the things that left me feeling a little disappointed or stuff that I was just unhappy with. Today, however, we're going to flip the script and I'm going to talk about why I love this mode regardless and what's been keeping me to come back and have fun with it ever since it's been released. Now, like I said, this video strictly want to talk about the positives. So yes, it might sound like I'm slobbing on Saber's knob, but that's because I already made a video talking about what I felt were the flaws, and even though I feel it's good to bring up points of criticism, I think it's also equally important to give praise where it's due and rightfully deserved. And again, I do love this game mode. I think Saber has made a solid foundation that leaves me excited to see what we're going to be getting with future updates for Siege. Now, I'm going to start off with what's probably some of the low-hanging fruit, and that is the simple fact that we have a new game mode to play. Now, operations have been extremely fun ever since I started playing this game, and I've enjoyed every single one. Granted, some more than others, but there hasn't been one that I genuinely hate or flat out refuse to play. That being said though, they still do get repetitive, and it is just nice to have a game mode where you can sit back with a couple friends and just slay the enemies of mankind and shut your brain off and just focus on having a good time. Plus, the other thing that I really love about it is this mode is just all about the gameplay. For me personally, I really love the mechanics and the gameplay loop of Space Marine 2, and sometimes I don't want to have to worry about completing objectives or anything along that end. Sometimes I just want to be able to get right into the combat, and I feel that Siege does a fantastic job of allowing me to do that. Now, one of the other things that I absolutely love about this game mode is just the setting. I feel 40K, and this is coming from someone who is a little bit newer to the franchise, but I feel like 40K is the perfect setting for any sort of horde or survival type game mode. And again, I feel like they knocked it out of the park with this. Even when you're just loading into Siege and you see the little cutscene of you and your teammates flying in on the Thunderhawk, it just reminds me of so many of the pieces of artwork where I've seen of just these absolutely brutal wars of attrition that are so commonplace within the Warhammer 40K setting. It really does feel that, you know, you're the last batch of reinforcements that's coming in to hopefully turn the tide of the battle and somehow make it winnable for everyone there. On top of that, just the design of the 3 stages that we have right now, I feel that they have been extremely well. It does make you feel that this is something that a military would actually use. Plus, some of the skyboxes have been phenomenal as well. I love in the first stage, you know, as soon as you hit round 5, you get to see the Bio Titan come crawling up over, and you have this kind of scripted battle sequence playing out in the background. It's just so cool to look at, especially when you factor in, you know, being able to fight against multiple extremists at one time. That's right, we no longer have to play on lethal or absolute if you're looking to engage, you know, 2 or 3 lictors at a time. You can just hop right into Siege mode. On top of that, we're also able to have multiple terminus enemies at the same time, which I do believe we had that a little bit here and there in the campaign, but those occasions were a little bit more on the rarer side. But here, it's something that you can experience without having to replay through the campaign. Plus, there's a bit of a variety. One game you might get 3 Carnifex, the next you might get a Neurothrope and 2 Carnifex. So I just love the idea that it really makes you feel like you're in the 40K universe, and again, just coming into this war zone trying to turn the tide of battle as best as you can with the limited resources that you have. Of course, I am extremely hopeful that they will add more to it. I would really love to see just kind of some set pieces in that really show the humans engaging with whether it's the Tyranids or Chaos. I just think that would be phenomenal to see going on in the background to really make you feel that you're part of a battle that's so much bigger than what you see on screen. On top of that, all three of the stages, they do play extremely well, even if they're not the most visually appealing. Like I would say this one here is the second stage. May not be the most visually appealing, but I do like the idea that there is some verticality to it. Again, it does make sense within the setting, the way that it looks. Plus, you have areas where you can engage from longer sight lines all the way down to close range combat. Again, I just feel that they did a phenomenal job of, even though there's only three, they're all extremely fun to play on. Now, the other thing that I want to throw out, and I do want to preface with this may make me sound a little hypocritical since it was something that I did list as a flaw, but I'll kind of explain my 2 cents on it, and that is the challenge to Siege. Personally, I have thoroughly enjoyed just how difficult it can sometimes be, even just to get to wave 25. It doesn't feel like a walk in the park. Yes, I still do believe that for some players, the difficulty spike is a little too rapid. However, as someone who's been playing a lot on Ruthless, Lethal, and Absolute, it's been incredibly enjoyable. You get some of the same difficulty that you experience with those difficulties. However, it feels a lot more laid back. You don't feel like you have to stress out over it so much, especially if you know you're helping a newer player and that just start their run. And again, for the most part, the challenge does feel really fair. Yes, there are times in that where sometimes it can get a little stressful, but for me, that's always counterbalanced with the fact that even if you have 5 biovores that are, polluting the battlefield with a whole bunch of spore mines, you gotta admit, it does look visually appealing, and again, it just reminds me of so much of that artwork that I've seen regarding the 40k universe. So, I might be a man that's just easy to please, but again, very simple reasons, but it's been keeping me hooked. Now, on top of that, there are a couple other things that I've really enjoyed, and that is, I would say, the fact that every class within the game is viable within Siege. So, I said before, Assault and Tactical were probably 2 of my least favorite classes, and truthfully, I did not find myself playing them a whole lot. However, ever since Siege was released, I have found myself wanting to experiment with both of those classes again. And I've actually found myself having a lot more fun with them than what I typically would if I were running a standard operation. I think it's really cool that it doesn't matter what your favorite class is, you're going to be able to run it and run it effectively within this game mode. On top of that, as someone who has enjoyed kind of experimenting around with different builds, Siege opens up the idea that, again, you can change up some of your perks because there are some perks that maybe didn't work too well within the confines of operations. All of a sudden, you do a wave survival mode and they become extremely viable. One of the big things that kind of caught me by surprise was I really enjoy playing tactical in this just because of the simple fact that I can recharge a grenade. When I was playing operations a lot, grenades, they're always nice to have, and they can definitely be used to change the tide of maybe a battle where you're not fully prepared for. However, in Siege mode, I found it being, an extremely reliable asset for just any team. And like I said before, tactical is probably one of my least favorites. Looking at Assault, I've always loved the ability just to shoot up high in the sky and come crashing down and watch everything beneath you get demolished. However, sometimes, depending on what the game director was feeling that day, you may not always have the time to make the Assault shine with that perk. However, just by its very nature, you're always getting large clumps of enemies within Siege mode, so even playing Assault for me, which I would probably say used to be my least favorite class, I've gotten so much more enjoyment out of it. And again, I've also been experimenting around with other classes. I never thought that I would be doing a close range melee sniper build, but because we have this game mode, I've been messing around with the sniper, and I found something that was really cool and opened me up to a play style with a class where pretty much I had been locked into, this is the one way that I'm going to play it, and that's it. So I really do appreciate that this game mode still finds ways to encourage me to experiment around with all 6 of the different classes that Space Marine 2 has, and find new ways to make them viable. Next, I would definitely say one of the big things that I really do like was the buy system that they added here. I feel, for the most part, it's relatively fair. I know on some of the later rounds it does feel that maybe you could get a little bit more points given how difficult it is, but overall, I feel like that's something that adds to the challenge, is having to start being aware of even like the financial resources that you have and trying to plan out for the long game. You know, if you're only maybe going to do 15 waves, go all in, get that dreadnought and just have a ball. But if you're trying to go for as long as you can, maybe we don't fire off the dreadnought anytime things get a little bit hairy. Which, again, I feel is something that encourages people to really learn the mechanics to the game, especially with some of the Terminus level enemies. I know personally I've gotten much better at doing melee combat with Carnifex and Hellbrutes, both. But on top of that, you know, we do get some pretty cool stuff at the buy station. So not only can you get more Cadians, which are surprisingly useful. Granted, they can die extremely easily, but there have been plenty of times in that where I've seen them just gang up and bully a Lictor, which is just really kind of crazy to see, because we know how dangerous Lictors are in the lore, and just to see a group of Cadians kind of bully one into a corner with a las cannon, there's just something really cool about that. Plus, of course, we get Brother Valius. He makes his triumphant return, and there's nothing that is more satisfying than when you feel absolutely overwhelmed, just essentially turning on a cheat code and watching everything on the screen just turn into that beautiful pink mist. Or, you know, beach sand if you're playing against Chaos at the time. But again, it is cool to see Valius make a return, and he's such a usable asset. It's something that does make the game definitely feel fair and rewarding whenever you see that Dreadnought take the field. Plus, I love the fact that we can call in the regular 6 classes throughout the game. Plus, they all come with their own little bonus. So not only do you have an AI teammate that is going to help you out, but you get rewarded for it. So whether that's, you know, hey, maybe you're playing as, let's say, the tactical, you're using the heavy bolt rifle, you're really trying to get those headshots out, you can call in the sniper and you're going to be rewarded not just with the regular bonus damage that you'll get, but the sniper is going to give you an additional bonus on top of that. And it does do it's such a cool way to kind of give players that power fantasy. Like, as someone who, again, Bulwark will always probably be my favorite. It's just so fun to call in the Vanguard, and all of a sudden that power sword that sometimes, you know, it feels like you're hitting them with a piece of al dente pasta becomes an absolute nightmare on the battlefield. I just absolutely love it. And it also encourages you to experiment around with calling in some of the different classes, because even if it's maybe not necessarily a bonus that you need, sometimes, you know, calling in the heavy just because it is something that can dish out a lot more damage, I think it's a really cool addition to the game. Plus, I do like some of the challenges that are in here, not just in terms of difficulty, but I do think it is cool that some of the challenges that they made in here really do make you feel like you're doing stuff that has an actual effect on the battlefield. Again, I do wish that there would be, other than like the financial parts, I do wish like it would affect what's currently going on during the wave. But either way, I think at least from maybe like a lore standpoint or something like that, it is pretty cool to see that, you know, hey, when you turn on those generators, you just did something that's helping your boys out quite a bit. But overall, I know, like I said, it's a bunch of simple reasons, but I just really have fun with the core gameplay mechanics of this game. So anything that gives me an excuse to hop on with my friends and just kind of kick back and relax after a long day, I truly appreciate. Also, I'm someone who's just naturally been drawn to kind of wave style games. Going back, Horde mode in Gears of War, when that first got introduced in 2, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I mean, I remember so many nights staying up with my cousin over at our grandmother's house just trying to get to that wave 50. And now that I have a mode that's similar in another game that I really love, I've just never been more happy to see an update come out with a game in a while. But overall, those are just my reasons. Feel free to let me know your reasons down in the comments below. Are you still having fun with Siege mode? Is it something where maybe you kind of already got your fix of it and you're waiting for the next major update? Also, if there's maybe some flaws that you've not noticed originally, but since you've been grinding it a little bit more, they become more apparent, please feel free to let me know down there as well. But as always, I appreciate you for watching, and we will catch you next time.